Hello everyone. If you are new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do it. Thanks. By the way, I also have a Naruto fanfiction channel. If you are interested, the link is in the description. Lost One by Hyperguy Oda-sama recently revealed that Luffy's devil fruit was not what we thought. So here's a question. What if Luffy not only had the power of a god, but the guidance of one as well? Luffy's harem as his entire crew. Basically, Luffy is going to be really overpowered from the start, and he will be able to create devil fruits. I don't own anything, adios.
Chapter 15. Smoke, Metal, and Storms, Daring Escape from the East Blue. Wow, Luffy said to himself, still admiring the platform where Gold Roger kicked off the Great Pirate Era. I can't believe I get to see this. Sally chuckled. I can only imagine, although I personally hope you don't meet the same fate. Luffy stretched his fingers, tempted to just throw caution to the wind and climb the scaffolding. He just had to know, what was Roger's last sight? What did the man see when he made his world-shaking announcement? Right before he could, though, something made him stop. His eyes widened at the sheer amount of haki that it made him gulp. Luffy? What's wrong? Nothing, I need to find someone. He walked straight out of the plaza and down the many winding streets, Sally hurriedly following him to make sure he did not get lost. Her captain made turn after turn, going from open streets to cramped side paths without breaking stride once. She had never seen something so completely take his concentration that wasn't a meal, SX, or a fight. Finally, Luffy stopped in a completely abandoned backstreet. The walls were lined with boarded-up windows and empty storefronts except for this one. A literal hole in the wall bar that had no sign, no apparent name, and seemingly no customers, but Luffy headed in anyway. Sally did the same and promptly froze at the sight of the one man looking at them from in front of the counter. Wild, untamed black hair went down to his back with an intense widow's peak forming over his face. Said face was also marked with a blood-red tattoo of interlocking diamonds going down the side of his forehead, over one of his eyes, and down his cheek. The rest of him was hidden behind a full-body green cloak save for the one aged hand nursing his scotch on the rocks. Ah, your observation is impressive, he complimented, his gravelly voice immediately capturing all attention. Take a seat, Luffy. I've been expecting you. Who are you? Luffy, we should leave. Now. Sally tugged on the end of his jacket, urging him to get the hell out of this bar. Huh? What's wrong? Oh, don't be so alarmed. I've only come to talk. It's not every day I have a reason to go out, you know. Come, sit down and have a drink. As terrified as Sally seemed, Luffy just had to know. He moved past the dusty tables across the splintered floor and sat down next to the cloaked man. Sally stayed glued to the door, refusing to budge even an inch. The young pirate found a glass of amber liquid in front of him. Not wanting to be rude, Luffy took a sip and was surprised. He had first tasted alcohol when he became brothers with Ace and Sabo, but the cheap sake on Dawn Island was nothing compared to this. Smooth and refined while still bitter and bracing. Thanks. So, who are you? Hey, you don't read the news much, do you? Not really. Why, you a pirate? Oh, no, I'm something much worse. At least, that's what they keep telling me. Luffy just frowned. Cut the crap. You brought me here for a reason, so just spill it. The older man just chuckled. Seems like you take after your grandfather in some ways after all. Tell me, did he pull the "I already signed your application to the academy" line? Luffy almost fell off of his bar stool. How the hell do you know that? Because besides from you and the fleet admiral, I'm one of the few who's told that man no to his face and lived. But hey, he was always a sucker for his family, especially his son. The young man downed the rest of his drink in one loud gulp before crushing the glass in his hand. Suddenly it all clicked. Garp muttered some weird things under his breath while training Luffy like, this time it'll be different, and that'll show that slacker, but he never got an explanation. But that one comment about a son. You're yes, Luffy. I'm glad to finally meet you, son. What? Sally rushed over and slammed her hand onto the bar. You can't be, or not, must not be serious. Luffy, we need to leave now. At ease, your majesty. I'm just here to talk. Sally, what's the matter? Who is this guy? Luffy, this is Dragon, Supreme Commander of the Revolutionary Army, the most wanted man in the world. If the entire island was swallowed up in a tidal wave, that would not have been enough to snap Luffy back to reality. He never truly thought about his parents, always assuming they were Marines just like Garp who were Kia or retired to some far-off island. But hearing this, that he was descended from the world's most notorious criminal made him completely re-evaluate his life. For all of 10 seconds before shrugging. Huh, cool, that does explain all the complaining Gramps does. Luffy, please take this more seriously. Dragon just laughed, expecting nothing less from the young pirate. Now then, the reason I'm here. I can't help but notice you become quite infamous in a very short time, Luffy. He pulled out a rolled piece of paper, Luffy's bounty poster. His finger went to the humongous asking price for his head, a proud smile on his face. You've gravely upset the balance of power in the East Blue, and that terrifies the world government more than anything. And not just by defeating all of the pirates they couldn't, but by revealing their own corruption. Luffy just shrugged. Those two captains were both jackasses. I did it to help Kuina and Nami, not make some kind of point. Indeed, you just happened upon them and acted in your own interest, but even more impressive than that. His other hand came out from his cloak, gesturing to the frazzled Sally. You happened to do what many people assumed impossible. Sway a royal from opulence to willingly acting as a pirate. Hence why they've added kidnapping to your list of crimes. Luffy actually looked below his picture and bounty to see precisely what he was wanted for. Most of it made sense. Destruction of property, theft, assaulting Marines, the generic charges they slapped onto anyone. But on the list was indeed kidnapping, making him red in the face. That's bullshit. Sally asked to join and I let her. Indeed, but you can understand that the world government has a very good reason for telling this lie. They want to preserve the status quo at all costs. Someone very high up the food chain wants to keep it that way. Both of the Straw Hats nodded. They knew who he was talking about, but they both had a very good guess who was really responsible. Luffy, you've shown a natural talent for doing the right thing at any cost. Your haki is advanced. You're proficient in your devil fruit. And you even have the 6 powers under your belt. You could continue on as a pirate or you could apply your talents to our cause. Luffy's eyes widened. You want to recruit me? Of course, we would also bring the rest of your crew into our protection. You can all act as agents, or support staff if that's what you prefer. Nah, we're good, Dragon's brows raised. Really? Just like that? Sorry, but a pirate means being free. If I joined your army, you'd be in charge of me, right? That is how a chain of command works, yes. Then nope, not happening. Nice to meet you, though. Luffy stood up and headed out, waving goodbye as Sally just hustled out behind him. Dragon just chuckled and poured himself a refill. Hey, worth a try, he isn't AD for nothing, after all. While Loguetown had its wide selection of bars to choose from, there were the few places that refrained from the harder stuff. One of them, a quaint little tea house popular with the older residents of the island, was where Tashigi had led Kuina. While the former bounty hunter was aching for something stronger, she had to admit the tea and sandwiches were delicious. Now that they were done eating, the near-identical ladies were at their table exchanging stories, with Kuina recounting some of her time as a bounty hunter and Tashigi going through her time in the Navy. Wow, there aren't that many women in uniform, Kuina admitted. I mean, what, there's one vice admiral and some who've heard of Suru and Hina. I've never met the first one, but Black Cage Hina is a good friend of my Colorado. They've been buddies since the academy, although she's usually busy with her fleet on the Grand Line. She does call pretty frequently. Really? Damn, that sounds tough. You ever get any crap from guys? All the time at first. When I first walked into the academy, I was the only woman in the room half of the time. I got called honey, baby cakes, sweetheart, and some less savory names. It took my graduating in the top 10th of my class for them to finally take me seriously. Good for you. I got hit on all the time. At least I can just tell them to fuck off or cut a bitch when that happens. Hey, I just kind of assumed you lived in Wano with the rest of the Shimotsuki clan. What brought you all to the East Blue? No idea, I never asked. My father didn't talk about his family much, too busy training me and the others. Where'd you come from, then? Oh, nowhere special. My parents were just merchants, so I moved from place to place all the time. Everywhere I went. I thought swords were the coolest thing and tried actually using one. But then, pirates attacked their caravan. Ouch, I'm sorry. No wonder you hate them so much. Tashigi struggled not to crush her cup. Pirates are nothing but evil. They steal everything valuable and burn down the rest. That's the whole reason I enlisted. So I can make absolutely sure no little girl goes through what I did. Kuina took a long sip of her drink. She wasn't too fond of keeping this girl in the dark, but she knew blabbing your status as a pirate to a marine was a surefire way to cause trouble. Once she finished her tea, she stood up from her chair. Thanks for the meal, but I still need to buy some whetstones before my ship leaves. Oh, that's what you were at the shop for. Here. Tashigi rooted around the inside pockets of her dark blue jacket to reveal a small whetstone. He gives you 2 free ones with every repair job. Take it. Wow, thanks, see you later, Tashigi. Bye? The glasses-wearing girl waved after her new friend, deciding it was about time to head back to the base herself. Right as she got up to leave, though, 2 Marines burst through the door in a cold sweat. Master Chief Petty Officer, there you are. Where have you been? Smoker expected you back over an hour ago. I know, I'm in trouble, but I just met another swordswoman for the first time in my life. Kuina is just the most. Wait, Kuina? You don't mean this lady, do you? The sailor revealed a sheaf of wanted posters. Tashigi quickly found the one bearing Kuina's face, making the petty officer blanch. She's a pirate, worth 50 million beris. I'm sorry, ma'am, but it looks like she's the main fighter underneath this Luffy guy that HQ wants on a platter. Her mind blanked before remembering the Wado Ichimonji, one of the most revered swords in the world, in the hands of a pirate. Tashigi stormed out of the tea house, Shigur in her hands and itching to slice Kuina's hands off. As the other Marines ran after her, the pirate poked her head out of the store across the street and sighed. Well, guess it's finally time to get chased out of town by Marines. Just as clouds began to fill the blue sky, the Loguetown cooking contest was down to its final round. To nobody's surprise, Reiju and Carmen made up the final two and were now going head-to-head for the prize. They had 45 minutes to make any dish from the provided ingredients that would wow the three judges. Both ladies worked with all the speed, grace and efficiency of masters. The onlookers couldn't help but watch in silence. Every once in a while, the chef's eyes would meet. Carmen's glare was one of furious determination, aiming to prove her worth. Reiju, meanwhile, had a challenging glimmer as if this was all a fun game. Time. Both ladies stood back from their plates, letting them be carried off to the panel made of local restaurateurs. On one side was Carmen's langoustine paella that immediately drew the judge's eye with its vibrant colors and alluring aroma. Next to it was Reiju's crab bisque with peppercorn gnocchi that made them all swoon from the rich flavors and contrasting textures. After several long, tense minutes of back and forth, the time had come. And the winner, by a single point is Reiju. The straw hat bowed to the audience, as graceful as ever. Polite applause filled the square as the victorious woman was handed her long sought-after elephant bluefin tuna. She almost forgot all about the money, especially as she noticed Carmen's head was bowed. I lost, again. Reiju's eye narrowed. The last thing she needed was this woman throwing a temper tantrum like all of those pretentious gourmands that tried to do her job for her. Carmen looked up at Reiju and a beaming, confident smile came upon her face. Ah. Oh, well, I'll merely have to sharpen my skills until I can finally dethrone you. The crowd let out a collective sigh as Reiju shook Carmen's hand. You really are something else. I think you'd be able to work at the Baratie no problem now. Perhaps. But I have gotten quite bored of this town. It's about time I branch out and find new inspiration somewhere else, like, say, on your ship. Huh? What do you mean? Well, obviously you wouldn't have left one of the most famous eateries in the region unless something far better came along. No doubt some cruise line or the private kitchen of the elite. And you know the old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Reiju felt a sweat drop form over her brow. Look, you're talented and I understand wanting to be the best, but I don't exactly work on a typical ship. Oh, so something even more extravagant. I must see it for myself. I wish to speak to whomever your captain is to discuss a position on his staff. Carmen then felt something cold and scaly slap her shoulder. Reiju having positioned the back end of her massive elephant tuna on the other woman. Then I'll need some help carrying this. Do you know where the execution platform is? Of course, I worked not far from there once, and so, the two hiked through the streets with a humongous fish slung between them. Reiju just waiting to see this woman's face when she realized she was demanding to work on a pirate ship. As Nami and her group kept running from the Bardo Club, the redhead was finally starting to wonder if she had made a mistake. Or maybe it was the 6th time Nijiko called her a moron. In either case, they just couldn't seem to shake the gang. They just had far too many people under their command, able to spread out and outflank them at every corner. Moody had even to fire a few warning shots to force them aside. Good thing none of them noticed her hands were shaking with every round. As the cat and mouse game went on and on, all of the girls were starting to get short of breath. There had to be some way out of this. But no matter how many turns they made or shops they tried ducking into, they couldn't shake the crowd of brightly dressed hooligans, and if this kept up, it was only a matter of time before the Marines caught wind of this. Right as the Straw Hat ladies came upon the main street, they noticed another large procession. A practical parade of men wearing full body cloaks that made everyone on the avenue stop and pause before someone in the front cackled in glee. Mawahahahaha. Well, I just knew that flashy bastard was here. Oh, great, Makino sighed, as if we need this too. The laughing stranger soon whipped off his cloak to reveal a bulbous red nose, blue hair tied into tassels, and a bright orange tri-corner cap emblazoned with a Jolly Roger. The sight of Buggy the Clown promptly made the civilians run inside their homes or flee to the nearest shelter. What the? Karina gasped, what's he doing here? Probably still sore after Luffy defeated him, Nami guessed, crap, there goes our cover. Ayu. You're the Straw Hat's crewmates, Buggy chortled, daggers already in hand. It would be such a shame if he found you both dead in the gutter. Bah, who cares about them? Another one shouted, revealing Moji. Just show me where the Straw Hat is. Poor Richie still hasn't recovered from what that monster did to him. Kabaji, naturally, revealed himself as well. The pirate huntress isn't here with you, huh? Oh well, I think the blonde ones will make for a good warm-up. Just as the buggy pirates started to advance down one side of the four-laned intersection, another street was filled with dozens of members of the Bardo Club. Whoa, what the fuck? Dude, that's Buggy the Clown, he knows these chicks. Well, what do? We can't let them get away. Nami saw the conflicted looks the gangsters had and suddenly got an idea. She ran pell-mell towards them, the other ladies following her lead before pouring all the strength she could into her legs. Moonwalk. The Bardo Club men all gaped. Each one of the 6 girls managed to jump off of the air and land on the other side. While some like Kaya and Moody only barely made the distance, they all were now free to rush off behind the baffled thugs. "Grr, damn those flashy girls," Buggy snarled. "All of you, out of my way, I won't let a bunch of riffraff stop me." The Bardo Club boys all grimaced. Those girls might have ripped off the boss and his number 2, but they didn't deserve to get shanked by this psycho. They all formed a line across the street opening. "So, you all want to die then? Fine, men, attack?" The buggy pirates surged forward only for a pair of gunshots to down the 2 closest goons, holes clean between the eyes. The Bardo Club all stared in silence as their very leader swaggered up from the nearest alley, Desire right behind him. "So, that's why you all weren't chasing after those dames," he chuckled. "Gotta admit, those girls are something else with their little jumping trick. Would've gotten me out of plenty of scrapes if I could do that." The redhead hefted her pipe. "Now then, I don't give a flying fuck who you are, but nobody threatens our boys and gets away with it." "You heard her, guys, take this clown down." The Bardo Club hollered as one, charging ahead with guns blazing. The main square of Loguetown descended into total madness as pirates and hustlers fought tooth and nail. As bullets started flying and swords clashed, Buggy and his lieutenants promptly ran up the street. "Faye, these rats aren't worth my time," the captain snarled. "Come on. That straw hat will come to regret ever crossing me." Desire and Bartolomeo both watched before following behind them, the latter scratching his head. "Who's this guy Buggy is after? I heard somebody managed to knock him down a peg, but how bad could he be?" Bardo?" He turned to see Desire looking as white as a sheet in front of one of the many notice boards. "Yeah, what's up?" "I'm pretty sure he's after this guy." The gang leader looked at the poster that indeed showed a young man wearing a straw hat, and wanted dead or alive for 75 million barras. "The shit? How does anybody get a bounty that big? And it's not just him. Look," she ripped off several of the pages, having dropped her pipe on the ground. "Don't these girls look familiar?" Bardo glanced down at the stack of papers and spotted all of the girls he was demanding money from earlier. "Oh man. Oh piss buckets, this is bad. We were trying to shake down pirates. Come on, we gotta find those girls and apologize." Desire ran off right behind him. She had met a few small fry pirates in her time and had one of their boys turn them into the bounty office for a little extra fun money, but messing with the real deal pirates who earned reputations like that. She was a hothead, not suicidal. Both of the street punks rushed right past a woman in pink, now eagerly watching them flee. "Oh my, I think I smell opportunity coming." Thankfully for Luffy, Dragon's little detour took them on the opposite side of the island. As a few clouds started to gather in the sky, the pirate figured he could just swing by the plaza one last time on his way back to the ship before they left town. Instead, he started to notice a whole horde of people running away from the coast of town and battening down their hatches. He wondered if it was due to the oncoming storm, only to get his answer strolling up the plaza. "Hey, how did I figure you would come here?" Smoker asked, cigars puffing away as he calmly walked into the now deserted yard. "You pirates treat Roger like he was some kind of god." "What's the problem with that?" Luffy said, crossing his arms. "I was just leaving, anyway." "Oh, you think so?" He looked at Sally right behind him. "With a member of Goa royalty in tow? She's part of my crew, and she chose to come with me. If you ever met that jackass Stelly, you'd understand." "Can't say that I have. But this is the end, chaos. No pirate gets away on my watch." Smoker then reached into his pocket and blew the whistle, a shrill piercing noise washing over the plaza. In a matter of seconds, uniformed Marines in white blocked all of the streets, dozens more positioned in sniping spots on rooftops or on balconies. Sally gulped seeing such a huge force of Marines. Luffy grabbed a hold of her wrist, offering her a show that he wouldn't abandon her here. He stared ahead at the captain, tilting his hat up. "You're pointing a whole lot of guns at me. You planning on using them? Cocky little shit, this is your only warning. Surrender and come quietly, or you and your whole crew are getting shipped off to Eni's lobby for a trial." The blonde released herself from her captain's grasp. "Well then, sir, I'm afraid we must formally decline your invitation. We have business elsewhere today." "Tisk, have it your way." "Men, yes, Captain, open fire." Dozens of bangs exploded out at once, Sally ducking herself to the ground while Luffy simply stood still and let the shots bounce right off of him, save for catching the ones that would have hit his hat. Those he easily crushed in his palm and let the mangled metal ball fall to the ground. The sailors gasped in terror. "So the intel we got from HQ wasn't exaggerating," Smoker admitted. "Fine. I'll deal with you myself." Plumes of smoke emerged from behind him, Luffy quirking an eyebrow. He figured this guy had to have a devil fruit with his reputation. White spark. Smoker himself then dissolved into a cloud of puffy white gas that rushed right at him, making Luffy put up his guard. As soon as the smoky mass had engulfed him, Luffy leapt straight up in time to avoid a barrage of punches from all sides. He looked down to see Smoker seamlessly reform his body from smoke. Huh, nice trick, this is the power of the plume fruit. I can turn into smoke at will. You can't run from me forever and you'll never be able to fight back once I catch you. Luffy just smirked. He knew it was only a matter of time before he came across a Logia user, and one who had gotten far too comfortable using his powers. Oh yeah? Then come and get me, White Fist. Smoker's arm launched like a smoke-powered rocket as Luffy fell back to the ground, leaning out of the way and landing on his hands. The pirate then flipped back onto his feet and charged ahead and leveled a punch right at the captain's face, his fist blackened by armament haki. The Marines around the courtyard almost dropped their weapons in shock at seeing Smoker down for the first time, none more so than the man himself. What the, how did you hit me? Fuck you, that's how. Luffy then leapt into the sky and ready to gum battle axe, but Smoker quickly regained his footing. On his way down, however, Luffy twisted himself around and landing a gum whip that sent the captain tumbling to the ground even as his body dissipated into vapor. What? Again? This can't be happening, he's punching Smoke. The fuck is this guy? We aren't paid enough to deal with. Hold your ground, Smoker ordered. We cannot grant him an opportunity to escape. Right as he said that, 3 of the men guarding one side of the plaza fell into a dazed, groaning heap. Kuina charged right over them, the Wado Ichimonji gleaming in her hand. You were saying? Hey, Kuina. Nice timing, hey. Took me long enough to find this plaza. Now come on, we need to get out of here. Over my dead body, Kuina turned to see Tashigi bursting out the door of one of the surrounding shops, her blade already drawn. Whoa, is that your twin sister? No, but I don't blame you. Kuina's grip tightened as Tashigi stomped into view, almost foaming at the mouth. You, I can't believe you, a pirate, and using such a historic blade for evil. It's disgusting. Your family would be ashamed of you. Don't talk about my family. You need to get out of this little hero fantasy of yours. If you think the Marines are all sunshine and roses, you're in for a world of hurt. Shut up. I'm not listening to morality advice from the likes of you. Tashigi held Shiger in front of her, blade gleaming in the sun. I'll personally drag you into a cell and then take the Wado Ichimonji back to where it belongs. Captain, yeah, Kuina? With all due respect, but out of this one. I need to take care of this. Luffy nodded. He may not fully understand it personally, but he knew swordsmen had code of honor when facing each other. Interference from an ally was a huge insult to the fighter. Ready to get schooled, petty officer? That's Master Chief Petty Officer to you, pirate. In the span of 10 seconds, Kuina and Tashigi crossed the plaza and locked swords. Metal hummed and grinded against one another, the near-identical swordsmen grunting in effort as they put all their strength into breaking the other down. Several of the Marines behind Kuina aimed their rifles only for Smoker to raise his hand. Hold your fire. See, Captain? 1. You might accidentally hit Tashigi and that's inexcusable. 2. She'll never forgive you and you don't want to see her truly angry. Luffy couldn't help but smile. He left out the third reason. He didn't want to violate the same code of honor either. As much as the young buccaneer wanted to commend the captain, he had to block several oncoming white fists in a row. With a flex of his observation, he could sense hundreds more men rushing down the streets. Somebody clearly rounded up the troops and/or called for backup from a neighboring base. He looked up and saw thick gray clouds starting to blot out the blue sky. They were running out of time and Smoker was nowhere near letting up. He also looked just in time to see 6 figures leap over the line of sailors blocking the eastern street. They were soon scattered by a rain of gemstones, shotgun blasts and pistol shots. Hey there, Captain, Nami said as she summoned a bow staff of clouds into her hands. Need some help? Hee. Yep, come on, we need to get out of here. Where do you think you're going? Smoker called. Men, arrest every last one of these pirates. Yes, Captain, and with that, the plaza descended into a madhouse as the full force of Loguetown's Marines tried their damnedest to capture half a dozen pirates. They easily outnumbered the Straw Hats 10-1 and that number was only growing as more men poured in. They quickly discovered that the pirates' quality was more than a match for their quantity, especially with the likes of Nami spawning dozens of clouds that smothered the sailors' heads and left them easy pickings for her crewmates. Plus, Najiko revealed one of the other things she bought at the town markets. Packets full of acorns. The blue net threw the seeds across the ground and channeled her power. The grow fruit quickly urging them to sprout and blossom into half a dozen healthy green timbers that lifted several Marines off the ground and led to even more bedlam as Kaya used them as a vantage point to fire her gems from. On top of that, Sally used the chance to climb up as well and summon a swarm of hornets that further broke apart the sailors and made a few duck for cover. Some tried sniping them from the balconied buildings surrounding the yard only to find someone had beaten them there. Moody had taken refuge in one, shooting any incoming Marine in the kneecap before looting their gun and ammo for herself. The blonde was more grateful than ever that she picked up how to handle a firearm in her travels, even if she was far from a sharpshooter. It helped that with her chill fruit, Any guard who walked under the banister was instantly struck with a freezing cloud that made them sigh and wonder what they were even doing here anymore. The battle was so intense that no one noticed two girls approaching with a massive fish slung over their shoulders. Carmen, naturally, took one look at the madness and tried to turn around. "What? I thought you wanted to meet my captain," Reiju asked with a smirk. Carmen looked into the massive brawl and quirked an eyebrow. "You cook for the Marines?" "Oh, heavens, no, see that one in the straw hat?" Carmen could only blanch as she watched Luffy leap out of a cloud of smoke before easily knocking aside a line of Marine charging at him with bayonets. WHAAAT? HMPH, I tried to tell you. Reiju shifted into her half-lion form, much to the panic of the nearby sailors. "Now run along, Carmen. I doubt you'd want to become a pirate." The Loguetown chef blanched as Reiju charged into the fray, frazzling the Marines even more. Now that the entire Straw Hat crew was assembled, the Navy found themselves completely overwhelmed, especially with Smoker being stuck dealing with Luffy and Tashigi in a duel with Kuina. The sky above turned gray from the blanket of clouds, a harsh wind beginning to blow across the island. In the midst of this chaos, however, nobody could have predicted the sound of an evil cackle that filled the air. Luffy and Smoker stopped mid-grapple to see Buggy the Clown approach. "Goodness, it seems like you keep making a mess of things, Straw Hat. What are you doing here?" Luffy rolled his eyes. "I beat you already, get lost." The clown was about to charge ahead only to stop. A gunshot landed right in front of his feet. "What the? Who did that?" "Yo!" Bartolomeo and Desire walked out from one of the alleys, both brandishing their weapons. "You two again? Do you have a death wish? I dunno. What do you call some clown picking on your family?" Desire snarled. "If any of our boys are offed, no devil fruit power is gonna put you back together again." "What are you two doing?" Makino yelled. "Don't mess with him, he's a really dangerous pirate." "I don't care who he is. Nobody hurts the people I care about, and hey, consider this payback for us causing you trouble earlier, yeah?" Buggy's hands split off from his arms, daggers clenched between his fingers. Before he could make a move, however, something large, black and shiny smashed into the back of his head. And thanks to the chop fruit, his head seamlessly detached from his neck and ended up flying all the way across the plaza and landed on top of the execution platform. Captain Buggy, Kabaji and Moji turned to find Alvida, her mace still positioned in midair before she hoisted the weapon on her shoulder. "Oh dear, did I interrupt something?" she tittered. "Now then, which one of you two wants to be next?" "Why you little?" Kabaji readied his unicycle, his blades primed to slice her down. Rather than dodge, Alvida simply stood there and let his sword strike her skin. Much to the shock of him, the Marines watching and Luffy's crew, the cutlasses slid right off her skin. "Huh?" the chief of staff balked. "Impossible, that was a direct hit?" Alvida just laughed. "It doesn't matter. Thanks to my smooth fruit, my skin is so flawless that anything will just slide off. It's how I lost all of my freckles, after all." Nami just rolled her eyes. "Yeah, and a few 100 pounds. Wait a minute, that's Iron Mace, Alvida? One of the Marines look anything like her poster?" "Who cares, capture her now." Several of the men in white rushed to grab her, but Alvida remained supremely confident. So much so that she just barely leaned out of the way of the first punch, nobody noticing that one of her feet lifted out of her boot. As she stepped onto the cobblestone, she turned in a half circle with the grace of a swan while landing a brutal back kick to the nearest sailor. Her other boot, already unclasped, came off from the blow and thus she spun like a figure skater on the rocky street. "Catch me if you can," Alvida literally skated off, kicking one feet after another while smashing any Marine out of her way with her trusty mace. Luffy had to admit, she actually had a decent handle on her devil fruit. The captain, however, was at his wit's end. No pirate had even managed to strike him before, let alone beat him so thoroughly. Smoker had even spat out his cigars as bruises covered his bare chest and face while Luffy was barely winded. And the real kicker was that Luffy was clearly not fighting at his fullest. "Damn, you really are something else, thanks. You going to let us go now?" "Why would I ever do that? Look at the mess you've made." Smoker gestured to the battlefield around them, but Luffy shrugged. "Hey, you attacked us. We were just on our way to leave." Smoker rushed in for another attack, a right hook that Luffy easily ducked under and landed an elbow strike that made the Marine cough up a mouthful of bile. How can you read my moves? Like I'm gonna tell you?" Luffy's foot then swept under Smoker's, knocking the captain on his side before a gum pistol smashed into his face. Smoker could feel his head bounce off of solid stone, almost knocking him out. And with that brief break, Luffy turned in time to see two figures staring at him. Desire and Bartolomeo were dragging an unconscious Kabaji and Moji off into an alley, both covered with welts from being pistol whipped and beaten with a pipe. "Hey, thanks for the help." While Desire just shrugged, her friend actually yelped in surprise before bowing with a blush on his cheeks. "And then no problem. Luffy, sir, we're just really so sorry for the misunderstanding with your crew." "The fuck's gotten into you?" Desire whispered before clearing her throat. "Yeah, don't worry about it. You're really damn impressive, kid." Luffy just chuckled. Hee, thanks, sorry if Buggy made a mess, I'll make sure he goes away for good this time. Bartolomeo stood back up, ready to ask all sorts of questions about Luffy's fighting style and powers before he gurgled. Blood leaked from his lips as he looked down and saw several daggers poking out from his stomach. Bartyyyyyyyyyyyyyyy. Desire screamed as the knives pulled out and her friend slumped to the floor. She watched as the hand holding those knives flew all the way over the battlefield to the top of the execution platform where Buggy cackled as his hand reattached to his arm. Serves you right for siding with the Straw Hat. Now then, time to exact my revenge. You want to fight so bad? I'm gonna turn your brain into a pancake, you big-nosed bastard. Desire charged ahead like a bull, blindly swinging at any marine stupid enough to get in her way. One by one, they fell like dominoes as she swung her pipe left and right, carving a path through the war zone much to the amazement of the other Straw Hat pirates. Nami, in particular, gulped as she realized she could have been in serious trouble. She might actually pay the next toll she ran into. Fueled by sheer rage, Desire leapt straight onto the execution platform in one jump before swinging with her all might. Buggy easily separated into pieces, swirling around the top of the scaffold. Desire had to weave and dodge as a pair of disembodied hands rushed at her again and again, one set of daggers coated red in Barto's blood. She bashed and blocked every attack, but was so distracted in her rage and panic that she didn't notice she was being backed to the edge of the platform. Time to die. Buggy's head goaded right before something landed between him and Desire. That's enough, Luffy ordered. You wanted me? I'm right here. Buggy tried in vain to pull his hands out of Luffy's iron grip, but all he could do was sputter in rage. The straw-hatted pirate turned back to Desire, his glare lightening. Go check on your friend. I'll handle this. Desire just gaped. Wah? But we tried to, I know, Makino told me. Don't worry about it. You stepped in to help against Buggy twice now. Now go, while all the Marines are still busy. The redhead just nodded, climbing down the ladder and rushing along the outside of the yard to reach Barto while she still had a chance. Once she was back on the ground, Luffy released Buggy's hands so they could rejoin with the rest of his body. How fitting, boy. You want to be like Roger so badly, you can die in the exact same spot as him. Luffy's knuckles turned white. Don't talk about him. You're just another fake pirate. What would you know about Gold Roger? Buggy just chuckled. More than you, I can assure. Now then, before I kill you, there's one question I've had since I first saw you. Tell me, where did you get that hat? Huh? It's from Shanks. Why? I knew it. Just seeing it again made me grind my teeth. That damn red-haired brat, you really are just like him. Hey, what did Shanks ever do to you? Don't you dare talk bad about him. I can say whatever I want. I was the one unfortunate enough to be on the same crew as him. Wait, what? But you can learn all about that in the next life. Now then, it's time for you and your crew to die. As thunder clapped and lightning streaked across the blackened clouds, Smoker looked up just in time to see what happened. In the literal blink of an eye, Luffy socked Buggy directly in his bulbous, red nose and launched him clean off the scaffolding. But in that instant, a bolt of white-hot lightning ripped from the sky and struck Luffy dead on. But even that paled to the real shocker. Smoker's jaw dropped when, in that moment, he spotted the look on Luffy's face in the split second before the bolt made contact. He was smiling, a broad, confident grin in the face of imminent death. Oh my god, he is just like him. That day, Roger was killed. Smoker could see it clear as day. The shining sun as the king of the pirates was forced past the full plaza, hands shackled and ankles bound but still smiling to the bitter end. And then, right as the government was about to silence him. You want my treasure? You can have it. I left everything I had together in one place, now you just have to find it. Smoker noticed that the entire plaza had gone silent as sheets of rain began to hit them all. The battle had halted from the surprise of the lightning strike. The execution platform was now a smoking load of rubble and slag. A hole had been punched in one of the building's roofs where Buggy now laid, unconscious as his nose swelled even bigger and a brighter red than a tomato. And at the base was Luffy, laughing like a madman as he hopped out of the wreckage completely unharmed. Nice try, jackass, he shouted to the raging heavens, bring your A-game next time. Luffy, Nijiko and Kaya rushed up to him, astonished to not see a blemish on him. WHAAAAAAT? The Marines all went, how is he still alive? Guys, come on, I'm Rubber. Everyone knows rubber innovates electricity. Makino just chuckled. That's insulates, Captain, now come on, we need to go. Right, like nothing ever happened. Luffy steamrolled past all of the Marines with his crew all rushing behind him as the winds only picked up and the rain came down as a deluge. The only exception was Kuina, still clashing blades with Tashigi. Kuina had to give this Marine credit, she did not give up. Tashigi's technique had holes in it, ones she exploited to leave cuts and disrupt her attacks, but she refused to back down even an inch. Once again, their blades locked and the blue-haired fighters were only murked. So, what are you after? My bounty? A promotion? Or do you just want to hang my sword on a wall? Of course not, Tashigi snarled. I don't care about prestige or that crap. I just can't stand seeing a beautiful sword being used by an evil pirate. Tashigi twisted around to break the lock, then rushed ahead to stab Kuina through the stomach. The Wado Ichimonji lashed upwards, forcing the bespectacled marine back. Me, evil? That's a bit much. You don't even know me. What else do I need to know? You're a pirate, and a disgrace to the Shimotsuki clan. I bet your father and grandfather would be ashamed of you. Oh, for what? Taking down 2 corrupt marine captains? Tell me, where the hell were you in either case? Tashigi flinched back as if she was struck. She had heard all about Morgan and Nezumi. The first one just put her into a funk the rest of the day, but it wasn't the first she heard about some CO getting too big for his britches. But Nezumi, the thought of a captain willingly working with a monster like Arlong, all to line his own pockets. She had slashed away at training dummies to the point where she got reprimanded by the base's accounting office and needed the Shigur repaired the next day. Hey, no answer, if you don't mind, I'm going to finish this duel now. I've got places to be. Kuina sheathed her blade, widening her stance. Tashigi copied her movements, desperate to prove herself against the first real swordswoman she ever met. One sword style, another flash of lightning masked their move. Suddenly the two were on opposite ends of the plaza. Lion Song. The Marines held their breath before Kuina returned her sword to its holster while Tashigi fell to her knees, hurriedly clamping a hand over the gash under her left shoulder. No, no, no. Damn it AAAALL, hey, not bad. Keep working on that technique, Tashigi. The petty officer turned as Kuina began to run towards the entrance of the plaza. Wait, where are you going? Finish me off, pirate. Sorry, not that kind of pirate, and with that, Kuina hurried to follow the rest of her crew. Tashigi struggled to her feet, even used the Shigur's sheath like a cane only for a hand to clamp on her shoulder. Captain, what are you? Let them go, Tashigi. The whole squad gaped at his words, none more so than his protege in front of him. BWUH. But, Captain, they. As far as we know, they haven't raided any shops. We've kept collateral damage to a minimum, no civilian casualties, and we even have Buggy the Clown and his gang to lock up. All in all, I'd say that's a job well done. Sir? What is it, cadet? Well, I was actually just near the platform when that Luffy kid confronted Buggy. I could have sworn he said something about knowing red hair shanks. Smoker arched an eyebrow at that. Send a message to HQ to look into Buggy's past to verify the claim. Being connected to one of the 4 emperors is no small news. Yes sir, and with that, Smoker simply lit up 2 new cigars even as the rain poured down and the rest of his men picked themselves up off the ground. As he and Tashigi left for the base, the captain actually cracked a slight smile. He hadn't met a pirate who could so badly outdo him in ages, and he'd have a hell of a story for Hina the next time they met for drinks. Captain, sir? What is it, Tashigi? Sir, I was taught at the academy that all pirates are nothing but scum. I read that textbook long before you did, young lady. Yes, sir, but why would? Here's something they don't tell you in the academy. There are 2 main classes of pirates out there. The vast majority are what the old-fashioned types called Morganeers. They raid, pillage and kill anyone in their sights without a care in the world. Tashigi nodded grimly, even as she felt her cut leak blood. And the others? Peace Main pirates. They're an odd bunch. All they do is sail around, kicking the crap out of anyone who picks a fight with them, and lounge about looking for adventures and that fanciful stuff. Really? But, why don't they tell you all of that? Because trust me, Tashigi, they just need you to follow orders. But every once in a while, you get an order that stinks. Smoker then left Tashigi to enter the sickbay and get her arm patched up while he went to make a very fascinating report to the higher-ups. True, the infamous Straw Hat Pirates got away, but there wasn't a single casualty among their ranks and Loguetown would be back in order once they got those trees Nijiko grew out of the plaza. All in all, Smoker could only laugh at how just it all felt. Damn it all, I told you the weather was getting bad. Nami, you have no right to complain. If you just paid those hoodlums, we wouldn't have been held up. Stop bickering with her, Nijiko. We've got to skedaddle before the Marines start chasing after us. Makino, what about those gangsters from the square? Shouldn't we help them? Kaya, we don't have time for that, we need to leave, now. Reiju was about to transform in order to speed things along only to hear a frantic set of footsteps that could only be made by someone running in heels. The chef turned and gaped to see Carmen furiously hoisting the elephant bluefin tuna on her shoulders as she ran as fast as she could after the pirate crew. Oh no, you don't take your fish back and then let me onto your ship. What? Are you insane? You'd willingly join a pirate crew just to outdo me at cooking. Reiju did at least fall back enough to take the massive tuna off of Carmen, leaving the other chef free to explain herself. Oh, it's true I plan on defeating you someday, but it's more than that. If you all are heading to the Grand Line, then that means I might finally be able to find the All Blue. What's the all blue? Luffy asked only for Kuina to yell at him to focus. Right as she did that, however, someone else came dashing out of an alleyway. There you all are, Desire yelled, make way, I'm joining you. Huh? Karina yelped, why? You spent all day either hustling us. Sure, you can come with us, and the other chef too. Oh, Luffy, Makino shook her head. Sometimes he was a bit too naive. But they did have the hammocks to spare in the cabins and both women had proven useful in some way. Desire was a solid enough fighter and Carmen was a cook on Reiju's level, which would help as they now had 11 mouths to feed. Thankfully, the docks were free of any interference, so Luffy jumped onto the Mary and lowered the gangplank himself. His newly expanded crew all rushed on board with Luffy hoisting the anchor and Nami furiously steering the ship to catch the turbulent winds. None of them even noticed the cloaked figure on the roof, watching them depart with a wry smile. Safe travels to you, my son. Go and prove to the world that just how wrong the world government is. He pulled out a poster from his coat pocket and chuckled at the sight of his own crooked smile. Revolutionary, Monkey D. Dragon 6,666,660,000, hey, he'll surpass me in no time. The storm raged on, uncaring of the many ships bobbing on the frothing waves or bashing into the side of the port. This was also true for the Going Merry, the little caravel forced to dance on the raging waters as Nami desperately tried to steer the ship in the right direction. Carmen and Desire, being the ones with no sailing experience, were tasked to keep the rudder steady to keep some modicum of control. Outside of the cabin, the rest of the crew were furiously keeping the sails pointed against the wind. Finally, after minutes of struggling against the weather, they had started to float away from Loguetown. Just when some of the crew could take a brief breath of relief, they all turned in surprise to see a brightly colored galleon following them. "Aw damn it, that's Buggy's ship," Kuina growled. "Guess that explains where his goons were in that fight." "What are we going to do?" Kaya shivered. "We can't aim the cannon when they're off the starboard sid weather." Right as Luffy was going to leap into action, a deafening bang that definitely wasn't thunder rang out. The big top suddenly found itself sinking below the storming sea as a hole was blown clean through the hull just above the keel. Luffy spotting pirates furiously rushing to lifeboats to escape a grave under the waves. "What the? Who shot them? The Marines?" Karina shouted only to spot a small vessel, less than half the size of the Mary floating up to them. As the weather shifted from a maelstrom to just a normal bout of rain, Nami stumbled off the bridge and was surprised to see that the approaching boat was shaped like a heart, while the flag above the sail was blank. The navigator rolled her eyes. What the hell could she want now? No one else had to wait long as Alvida herself walked out from the little ship's cabin, a white flag in her hands that she waved even as her mace rested against her legs. Luffy just shrugged, figuring he could always just send her away again if she bothered him. The last thing he, or any of his crewmates watching, expected was for the pirate woman to bow her head to the deck with her mace falling to the wayside. "I, Alvida, hereby surrender to you, Monkey D. Luffy. Please, accept me onto your crew." That made Luffy pause, scratching his head. "Wait, now you want to join? What happened to making you yours and stuff? I watched that fight with Smoker and I realized that I truly was no match for you, even now with my devil fruit. You're a far stronger fighter and I wish to learn from you. I was already impressed by you, but now I truly admire you, Luffy. Please, allow me to contribute to your journey to find the One Piece." "Hold it right there," Nami yelled. "You expect us to trust you? How do we know you aren't going to start a mutiny? This ship of mine, consider it yours, a scout ship you can use at your leisure." Luffy blinked. "You give us a ship, just like that?" "Of course. I plan to dedicate myself body and soul to you, Captain. I can helm this ship while you steer yours in front and I will act as backup in any confrontation with other pirates or the Navy." The other girls all looked at one another, wondering just how genuine Alvida could be here. It was obvious she didn't have her old ship anymore and for all they knew, this small vessel contained everything she owned. And she not only attacked Buggy himself, but also sank his ship with the clear intent to help them. "Fine," Luffy said seriously, "but I don't want any funny business. On my crew, all of my crewmates are equals and we support each other. Also, no pillaging innocent ships like that cruise liner, understood?" Alvida bowed once again before looking up with a tearful smile. "Yes, Captain, thank you for your generosity." Luffy wasted no time tying a rope to the bow of Alvida's ship and then throwing the length to the Going Merry and asking Makino to tie the other end to the stern of the caravel. As surprising as it was, the other girls figured that having a second ship even just to get supplies or to outflank Marines in a naval battle could be a helpful tool. And so the two ships merrily sailed away from Loguetown. Though the sky was still blackened and the waves were choppy, the mood was high as they passed the lighthouse meant to guide ships to the Grand Line. According to Nami, it was less than a week's time to reach the entrance to the world's most infamous ocean. Chapter 16. En route to the Grand Line, two ships, one crew united. By the time the storm had passed, the Straw Hats were miles away from Loguetown and under the blanket of night. Now that they were safe, Alvida anchored her little ship just behind the Going Merry and was helped onto the caravel by Luffy. "So, now what?" she asked him. "Now we celebrate, new crewmates mean a party." The pirate woman entered the ship's cabin and was surprised to see the girls all crowded around a dining room table already trading drinks and stories. Carmen and Reiju now stood in the kitchen, one manning the stove covered in steaming pots while the other chopped and diced on the countertop. "Quite the loose ship you run here, yeah, he's not a real stickler for hierarchy," Kuina told her over her ale. "All you need to do is listen when shit's going down and you can pretty much do whatever." Alvida sat down between Kaya and Moody, the two blondes going quiet in her presence. She couldn't entirely blame them, no doubt having been told about their first encounter by Luffy. But as soon as the food was presented, a massive spread that seemed more fit for a crude triple this size, the room became lively once again. At the head of the table was Luffy, laughing and kidding around as he stuffed his face while the women around him acted so casual and upbeat that Alvida honestly forgot she was on a pirate ship. "Hey, are you alright?" Kaya asked her. "You haven't touched your food for a while now." She wiped her eyes briefly. "Sorry, I just can't believe how different you all run things. It's so carefree." "Yeah, I wonder why that is." Everyone turned to see Nami, swirling her water around with a glare. "It's probably because our captain isn't a total jerk like someone else I've met before." "Hey, that's not very nice," Nijiko scolded her sister. "Alvida has done nothing but help us today." "Actually, that's not entirely true," Sally said in between bites of her halibut. When she first appeared in front of Luffy at the plaza, she went on about making her a part of his crew, among other things. Everyone glared at her, making Alvida shrink despite being the tallest woman in the room. She looked up at Luffy, who just kept eating, albeit with a firm eye on her, waiting for an explanation. "It is true, I went to Loguetown specifically to meet with Luffy again. And I intended to defeat him in battle to assert my control over him." Reiju crossed her arms. "Is that what you call a romantic gesture?" "It was, but I fully admit I was wrong. First of all, I could never even land a blow on Smoker. He would have captured me in an instant if I tried fighting him. But you, Luffy, he was nothing against you. I knew you were powerful, but you're on a completely different level." "Is power all you're after?" Kuina asked. "'Cause here's a fair warning. We aren't a bunch of meat shields for you to hide behind." No, I fully intend on working alongside the rest of you and improving myself. I found the smooth fruit myself and spent weeks understanding how to control the friction of my skin so that I can use it effectively, and..." Alvida even removed her hat and held it to her bare stomach. "I admit I was a horrible person. I was cruel, greedy and hated myself so much that I lashed out at anyone. It's no secret that before I was, well, fat, huge, a total bitch." Everyone looked at Desire. "What? I remember hearing about some crazy big broad who smacked anyone who didn't blow smoke up her ass about how hot she was." "You're right, I was truly awful. I treated my own crew like garbage." Luffy stood from his seat, walking around his crew until he reached Alvida. He lifted her chin to meet her eyes. "And what about Kobe?" Alvida gasped before she let out a bitter laugh. "Oh God, I completely forgot all about him. The poor kid must have had nightmares about me. I literally used him as a verbal punching bag, and that was when I wasn't kicking him around. I casually threatened to drown him if he didn't keep up navigating my ship." The others all paled as they saw tears rolling down her face. "God, what was wrong with me? Just because I was fat and had ugly freckles and gaudy clothes, I turned some random boy into my whipping post? I swear, I'll let him whack me with my mace. Just once so I never turn into that abusive cunt ever again." Luffy's hand moved to her shoulder before wrapping his arms around her, allowing Alvida to regain her breath. "I get it, you made mistakes. We all have at some point. And, if it makes you feel better, Kobe is in a much better place now." "Are really? Yep, I dropped him off at a marine base. He got inducted before we left. He was so happy." Alvida at least took solace that she didn't completely ruin that boy's life. She then went on to explain how she was overweight her whole life and constantly tormented by the other kids in her town for it. No diet or exercise she ever tried helped her, and the bullying only grew worse until one day when she was 16, she snapped and brained someone with a hammer. She was naturally kicked out of school and branded a delinquent, but Alvida latched onto that power trip and soon became a pirate with the obsessive desire of proving she was the most beautiful woman in the world, even if she had to beat that fact into people. "Okay, I know kids can be horrible," Karina sighed. "Trust me. I grew up in some pretty bad orphanages, but I'm pretty sure there was a better way of handling that issue. In hindsight, perhaps, but I was strong for my age. Of course, nobody would assume anyone with my old physique would be good at sports, and I never did well in my classes, so it was either a life of menial labor in a fishing village or striking out on my own. And besides, now I can contribute to something better than just being a common plunderer." Carmen then presented a platter of blueberry cheesecake for the crew's dessert, with Alvida getting the first piece. The new chef sat across from her, offering her a smile. "I can't help but think I was on the opposite end of that. I was a touch conceited when I was younger." Several of the ladies rolled their eyes at that revelation before Carmen explained how she was actually a dance prodigy on her home island who ended up with 2 sprained ankles when she practiced too hard for an audition to the East Blue's most famous performing arts school. In her break, she was so bored that she craved anything to read, and that just happened to be cookbooks. Okay, so where did the All Blue come in? Reiju asked. Chef Zeph mentioned a few times he wanted to find the place when he had the time. When I told my parents I wanted to shift my career to cooking, they were more than happy to provide a tutor who told me about it since he was a poissonnier before. And as soon as I heard it, I couldn't imagine a better place to be than an ocean with all the world's fish. Hey, nice to hear not everyone had jackasses for parents, Alvida sighed, finishing off the last of her dessert. And since Carmen was clearly occupied with her meal, everyone turned to Desire, who just put down her drink. First off, I've been wondering, is your friend okay? Nijiko asked first. Bartolomeo, oh yeah, he'll live. That clown asshole got him good, but he's pulled through worse before. Plus, we have guys in our gang that know first aid just for that. Desire stared down at her partner in crime, clamping his hands over the seeping red wound over his stomach. Tears mixed with the driving rain, making Bardo chuckle. Hey, you haven't called me Barty in forever, GHK. Shut up, you idiot, don't talk, just stay there and let me get you back to the hideout. The green-haired gangster's smirk came even as streams of scarlet leaked from the corner of his lips. You sure you want to do that? Those pirates are gonna get away at this rate. Huh, the fuck are you on? I'm not abandoning you. You're right, because the second I can, I'm taking the boys out to sea to come after you. But you've got something else? That Luffy is a badass and a half. If anybody can help you find them, it's that guy. It hurt me to leave him behind, but we've never broken a promise to each other. If he says he'll be at sea, he's damn well gonna be. They'll find some guy who can smuggle them out under that captain, I'm sure of it. Luffy nodded, already taking a liking to Bartolomeo since he fully understood fighting to protect his friends. He was looking forward to seeing him again. What was he saying about finding somebody? Desire solemnly reached inside her coat to pull out a photograph. She handed it off to Luffy, him unfolding it to find Desire standing alongside 3 other girls. One rather rotund brunette that had her arms slung around Desire's shoulder. A curvy beauty with dark blue hair striking a pose with hands on her flared hips, and a young girl with frizzy black pigtails who was pumping her fists in the air. Those are Anna, Senna and Tina, my closest friends after Bardo. Found them all one day a couple years back, hiding in some alleyway. I handed them some food and they wouldn't leave me alone. Desire chuckled. From that day, I took them in and treated them like my own little posse. I taught them to fight, pick pockets and look out for themselves and the rest of the gang. That picture was from when we managed to con this noble douchebag out of a sack full of berries by having Senna, the short one there, act like she slipped and got a concussion thanks to the wine he spilled. Haha, classic, Karina giggled, but where are they now? No clue. One day, I sent them all on a shopping trip, just to buy some grub for us. They didn't come back. I shook down everyone on that half of the island, but nobody saw them. I didn't know where to start looking, but I kept flashing that picture to anyone I found, but nothing for months. Luffy gently handed the photo back before punching his right hand into his left. We'll search every island we go to. We won't stop until we find any sign of them. The redhead just paled. What? Why you'll do that? I just met you today. You helped me fight Buggy and the Marines today, and I can tell you're a good person. That makes you my friend, and I always help my friends. It's true, Nami said with a proud smile. He beat down Arlong the Saw to save my home. Ended up rescuing me from a jackass Marine captain and his bastard son. He saved me from being assassinated by a pirate disguised as my butler. He fought Don Krieg and his pirate armada just to defend the restaurant I worked at. Desire already had to see Bardo need several stitches. She didn't need to break down and cry like some wuss in front of her new captain. She settled for standing up and holding out her hand. Then let's get busy, Captain. I'm new to sailing, but point me at any fucker you want brained and they're going down. Luffy happily shook her hand, cementing her as the official fighter of the Straw Hat Pirates. A generic title, perhaps, but Desire looked perfectly content as she cracked open another bottle while Luffy sat at the head of the table again. Now that everyone was fed and had gotten to know each other, it was time to let them all in on the crew's few secrets. First of all was Luffy's status as the avatar of Nika. While Carmen and Desire just rolled with the idea, Alvida laughed it off as utterly absurd. Like there was actually some evil god controlling the entire world government. She then looked around and realized everyone was staring at her, going pale. Oh my god, you're serious? Well, yeah, Luffy nodded. Why wouldn't I be? But it's just so insane. You're sitting with the East Blue's most wanted crew, and earlier today Luffy beat a smokeman and Kuina fought a doppelganger of herself. Nami rolled her eyes. And you basically got a full body makeover thanks to a magic fruit. Is something like Emu really that far out there? Alvida looked down, still unused to seeing her own feet after so many years, and conceded the point. And with that done, it was time for Luffy to christen his new crewmates with new powers. While everyone wondered if it was possible for Alvida to get a second ability, Luffy refused to try given that it could risk her life. Anyone who eats 2 devil fruits will get torn apart by the clashing powers. He warned them all, if any of you happen to find a fruit, you can bring it with us to sell but do not eat it. Everyone nodded and Alvida couldn't help but blush. Hearing him so worried about her safety made the dark-haired beauty all the more confident that coming along was the right decision. That aside, there were still 2 candidates. And since Carmen joined first, Luffy walked up to her and placed a hand on her forehead. When he was done, the chef felt something off underneath her skin and triggered her transformation. Her skin from the waist up was covered in a coat of vibrant pink down, her neck stretching up several inches as her lips pushed together and out to form an orange beak. Her legs were now covered in dense tan plates of chitin, her high heels gone as her feet were 3-point claws ending in talons. Her arms were now loaded with feathers that trailed behind her. But the most striking detail was the utterly massive tail that plumed out behind her, an easily 6-feet tail with a mesmerizing array of gold, pink and red swirls and spots. The bird fruit, model, peacock, she marveled, staring into the refrigerator to get the best possible look at her new body. It's incredible. Wait, can she actually fly? Karina gawped. I don't know. Guess I'll have to literally stretch my wings. Carmen laughed at her own joke as she shifted back to normal. Desire didn't waste any time walking up Luffy and waiting for her own power-up. Once he was done, Desire tried crossing her fingers and was amazed as a square of translucent blue glass appeared in front of her. Just large enough to cover her front. Reiju tried throwing a simple punch. Ouch, she winced, rubbing her tender knuckles. God, I didn't even dent it. Hot damn, this is awesome. My barrier fruit makes the perfect defense. She then promptly felt something poke her in the back, turning to see Kaya had thrown a tiny gem the size of a 1-berry coin at her neck. PFT, show off, the blonde just giggled as Desire uncrossed her fingers and her barrier disappeared. Luffy then handed out the 6 powers book for everybody to start reading, explaining the basis of haki to the rest. Everyone was amazed to hear that it was thanks to armament haki that allowed him to hit Smoker even when he turned into a cloud. That's incredible, Alvida odd, that, in theory, means even the admirals aren't safe from you. I wouldn't go that far. Those 3 not only have way more dangerous logias, but they've definitely got haki too. You have to know it to be promoted to vice admiral according to my grandpa, plus they're all really experienced. I know eventually I'll run into one but I'm not up to their level yet. Well, at least you have sense in your head somewhere, Karina sighed, but enough serious stuff. We're on our way to the Grand Line and all the major moolah, let's celebrate. And so, Makino rolled out a cask from the galley and the night became raucous party of drinking, dancing and toasting that the Straw Hat Pirates would all reach the end of the Grand Line with all of Luffy's ladies accomplishing their dreams in tow. Break. The days after Loguetown were all peaceful and gave the Straw Hat Pirates plenty of time to experiment with their devil fruits and get up to speed with haki and the 6 powers. It also gave Alvida a chance to prove herself as she steered the little heart-shaped scout ship, now dubbed the Mini Melody. As she stood at the wheel, she chuckled at why Luffy insisted on a name. A ship is a member of the crew too, and you ought to know the name of everyone on your crew. That said, she occasionally just tied the ships together so that she could train herself or mingle with the others. Alvida ended up becoming friends with Moody and Cosmetics. And being one of the older crew members at 25, she couldn't help but feel protective of the younger ones like Nami or Kaya. Desire was opposite, needing someone to remind her to take breaks from training. She made a fast friend in Kuina thanks to their hot-blooded nature and respect for weapons. While her trusty pipe was no renowned weapon, it proved an impressive sidearm as she could easily hold off most of the others during training. She could often be found on her breaks in the kitchen, eager to taste-test whatever Carmen and Reiju had prepared. And speaking of the Peacock Woman, she and Reiju were practically inseparable as they frequently had cooking duels to heighten their own skills and enjoy a little friendly competition. Luffy, naturally, had zero complaints about the arrangement and gobbled up everything they prepared. Carmen also found her bird zone to improve her strength, plus she was learning to glide on the winds although full flight seemed out of her reach for now. Now, however, it was a bright, sunny day that gave everyone the perfect opportunity to test their skills. Luffy stood in the center of Mary's deck, eyes closed while the rest of his crew circled around him. Without any warning, Reiju pounced in her half-lion form trying to claw at his head, using her taller physique to outflank him but Luffy seamlessly swerved and dodged around her strikes. A single palm strike to her furry stomach sent her sprawling in time for Luffy to leap away from a blast from Makino, then several gem shards from Kaya. He lashed out with a kick to force Karina and Nijiko away, then flipped to the side to avoid the roots trying to hold down his foot. Luffy then caught the Wado Ichimonji, then throwing Kuina aside just as Nami tried attacking him with her cloud staff. He weaved around her strikes through paper arts before tossing the redhead aside. Desire and Alvida tried to outmaneuver him, aided by a swarm of 100 hornets literally raining down on him. Luffy seamlessly ducked under a mace, then jumped over a pipe before using finger gun. Yellow Lotus to knock out Sally's insects. As he headed upwards, He used moonwalk to leap around a peacock flying down trying to nab him before standing tall on the beam atop the mainsail. Wow, you guys are getting really good at this, he chuckled. I had to tap into observation a few times and more than half of the 6 powers, nice going. A round of tangerine juice later and the girls were back to relaxing but Luffy spotted something interesting off the port side. A small, tree-dappled island without a single building on it. Huh, that's weird, Nami said in between sips. There isn't any islands between Loguetown and the entrance to the Grand Line on my maps. Wait, really? Luffy jumped up. You mean it's a mystery island? Alvida just chuckled. I suppose by that measure it is. Fancy a bit of exploring, Captain? Heck yes. I want to see it, I suppose there's no harm in it, Karina shrugged, and who knows, maybe there could be buried treasure there. Is that all you ever think about? Desire asked. What, like you're going to complain about free money? Fuck no, but at least I don't hub the gold in the storeroom. The brunette blushed as Nami skipped up to the wheelhouse, Alvida hopping aboard the mini-melody to follow behind. A bit of circling around revealed that the little isle was indeed uninhabited. Luffy swiftly dropped anchor about 100 feet away off the eastern side and rocketed himself onto the beach with the ladies following behind in 2 lifeboats. As soon as the Straw Hat Pirates touched down, the ladies spread out and began exploring. Unfortunately for the navigator and treasurer, they didn't find any sign of loot but they were surprised by just how pleasant this place was. Sweet-smelling tropical flowers rested under a forest of palm trees. No hostile fauna aside from some bothersome bugs that Sally's hornets kept at bay. Reiju and Carmen quickly set up a hibachi grill on the beach and soon the Straw Hats were roasting fish and a few conch they found on the shoreline. Hey, funny, this is always the kind of place I wanted for myself, Karina mused, but I think it's a lot more fun this way. Ah, look at you getting soft, Kuina chuckled before taking a swig of her booze. Gotta admit, though, this whole ride has been pretty fun, you know, aside from learning that Hawkeye is WAAAY farther ahead of me than I thought. I can't believe you're actually serious about besting him, Alvida gaped. I just assumed I would never get where I wanted. Not with that attitude you won't, Makino frowned. You'll never accomplish your dreams thinking like that. She's right, Nami told her, if you just keep making excuses like that, you'll just end up hating yourself. Alvida stared for a moment before looking down. But it's just so absurd. You'd all laugh hearing it. No way. Luffy smiled. Come on, tell us. Seeing him being so open and accepting, the pirate felt her walls come down and admit there was one buccaneer she always looked up to. One renowned not just for her incredible strength and ferocity but being so immensely beautiful that she captivated the hearts of everyone who caught sight of her. The Queen of the Amazons. The only woman among the warlords of the sea. The pirate empress Boa Hancock. I know, it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I've always wanted to surpass her. I thought I could work my way up the East Blue and eventually catch up to her. She then looked around, expecting to see everyone scoff and laugh at her. But instead, everyone just nodded. Kuina and a few others even looked impressed. Alvida could scarcely believe it. Her own crew laughed at her before she started pounding heads. You all, don't think I'm crazy. Nope, everyone needs a dream, and anyone who laughs at them is a total jerk. You want to beat this Hancock someday, then you just have to work for it. Alvida could scarcely believe it. Someone could be so open to what sounded like an insane idea. Granted, she had heard about how Luffy had trounced even the likes of Krieg and Arlong but she only knew that made Luffy powerful and fearless. To think he would be the most compassionate and generous man she'd ever met. As the crew finished up their beachside lunch, Kaya and Karina had brought some spare blankets so they could relax and unwind. And while Luffy busied himself with some light training, the others all chatted and took in the shining sun above and the gentle lapping of the waves. But as relaxing as this little detour was, someone was looking for a little excitement. Without any prompting, Alvida began shedding her hat and coat. The others all just assumed she was getting more comfortable until she undid her belt and dropped her pants. The raven-haired beauty was pleased to see that she instantly had Luffy's attention. His eyes were glued to her long, luscious legs and the panties that were now the only clothing she had underneath her usual top. Like what you see, Captain. Yes, he said without a hint of shame. Then since you've been so open to my desires, I think you can help with the other one I've had for a while now. She sashayed up to her new captain, emphasizing her swinging hips and her bouncing bosom, with a clear pair of bedroom eyes. I heard about your arrangement with many of the girls on this ship, and I'm more than eager to join for myself. Luffy, par for the course, felt his stamina quickly return although even he had to admit he felt sexed out. As his ladies all redressed themselves, he felt like life was just about perfect. He was the captain of his ship, had the friendly, faithful crew he always dreamed of, and they were only about a day away from entering the Grand Line. What more could he possibly want? It was only then that he noticed something bobbing along the waters a good several clicks away. He tilted his head in shock before he recognized a few things. The trees on the aft deck. The yellow and red stripes on the mizzenmast. The Jolly Roger he designed. The Going Merry. It's being stolen. What? The girls all cried. Nami rushed over to her bag and pulled out the spyglass she had brought just in case she spotted something on the horizon. Sure enough, she quickly spotted their own ship swiftly sailing away. Everyone, on the mini Melody now. There's a tailwind coming any minute and the currents are smooth. At full speed, we should be able to catch up. Luffy didn't need any other instructions. He ordered all the ladies to huddle up before stretching his arms around them all, making a tight bundle as he leapt into the air with all of them in his grasp. They all soon crashed onto the scout ship, the ladies all quickly getting their bearings. Alvida stormed up to the wheel and turned them around while Nami ordered them to make a beeline straight for the Mary. Throughout it all, Luffy was silent. He trusted Nami implicitly, she was his navigator after all. But beyond that, his rage was threatening to boil over and the last thing he wanted was to accidentally snap at any of them. He looked out from under his hat, at the slowly growing figure of his own boat, and felt his curled knuckles turn white. I don't care who did this, I'm gonna make them pay. Chapter 17. A rescue becomes a siege, the invasion of Clockwork Island. As the mini Melody raced ahead, the mood was unusually tense. They all knew having high bounties put them at risk for this sort of thing, but so soon and while they were still in the East Blue was a surprise. Just who could be targeting them? Soon enough, the little vessel pulled alongside a truly impressive galleon almost twice the size of the Mary. Forest green paint marked the hull beneath half a dozen cannons pointing up and around the boat's perimeter. The two towering masts were marked with the random sets of numbers and card suits, with several near-identical boats flanking it. Holy crap, it's a blockade, Nami blanched, and no marine markings. This has got to be a pirate crew, and a big one. That can't be, Alvida shook her head. A crew this size patrolling the area around the Red Line would attract every sailor in the East Blue. They would never let someone else control access to the other seas. Well, like it or not, Desire cracked her neck, we're gonna beat somebody's face in. I wouldn't want my ride getting pinched. The mini Melody pulled up alongside the flagship of the fleet, a large wooden bear head at the bow. Luffy's seething anger was actually abated when a woman's head popped up on top of the figurehead. Her radiant blonde hair was in wavy twin tails and whatever clothing she was wearing wasn't apparent on the long, slender arms cushioning her chin. Hello there, you all look to be in quite the pickle, she chuckled, looking for something? You took our ship, Luffy growled. Give it back or we're taking it back. She chortled into her hand, making the others realize there was nothing on her shoulders either. Even more strangely were the drops of water trickling down her limbs. Goodness, such a bad temper. You clearly need someone to teach you respect. You're in the presence of a member of the Trump Pirates, and we are more than free to take whatever we wish. The girls all scowled at the haughty blonde, none more so than Sally. If this woman were about 30 years older and a flagrant liar about her age, she'd be a dead ringer for her spoiled witch of a mother-in-law. But I'll tell you what, the wet woman continued, I can't help but notice the multiple women on board your little dinghy. I could propose a trade for your ship if you wish it back so badly, Are you serious? Nijiko gawked. What, you want us to join your crew in exchange for the Mary? Oh, no, that's not what I meant. We don't accept nobodies into our ranks, after all. What I meant was that my brother, our captain, could very well use some companionship, if you know what I mean. The women all gagged and felt their blood boil. The arrogance on this woman was unreal, but that paled to the captain. Luffy's teeth were clenched so tightly his jaw creaked, his very aura radiated malice. Shut up. What is it, little pirate? You'll have to speak? In a single bound, he leapt from the mini Melody to the deck of the Trump flagship. Louder, the blonde finished, her voice hitching before paling at the young man's barely restrained rage. You can say whatever the hell you want about me. But stealing my ship, and expecting me to pawn off my crewmates? You either apologize right now and give the Going Merry back or I'm going to make you regret it. Oi, what's all the commotion up here? The door to the ship burst open revealing a rotund man in a yellow shirt with a large J on the front, suspenders and a fluffy white coat with a pig's head covering his entire back. Boo Jack, help! The woman screamed, this pirate, he's planning on attacking us. The fat pirate guffawed in surprise before scratching his chin. Well then, let me ask this upstart a question, my dear sister. What happens when a nobody goes up against one of the Trump pirates? He then paused for a few seconds, completely heedless of the simmering anger still coming off of Luffy before bearing a smug grin. He gets fed to the Bear King, of course. Now, get off of our ship. Luffy quirked an eyebrow when Boo Jack suddenly rolled up into a ball, dozens of metal spikes emerging from the white shawl now covering his entire body. Even with his legs covered, he somehow rolled forward like a spiky boulder prepared to mow Luffy down even as he tore holes in the deck of his own ship. Gum bullet. His hands black with armament haki, Luffy's palms snapped forward and stopped the rolling, tubby bully in his tracks much to the absolute horror of his apparent sibling. He could feel Boo Jack shifting around, squealing in total shock about how someone could have possibly stood up to his spike armor. Straw Hat Pirates. Yes, Captain, they all answered from their ship. Get up here and commandeer this ship. We're gonna show these assholes how it feels. Without another word, Alvida lifted a trapdoor on the mini Melody and pulled out a grappling hook attached to several feet of rope. She swung upwards onto the larger ship's railing in one attempt, quickly securing the other end to the mast and then climbing up the length of rope with her crewmates following after her in a single file line. Luffy tossed Bojack aside and overboard like a sack of ballast as his crew stormed onto the deck, Kuina drawing her sword and pointing the tip right at the blonde's throat as she stayed inside the bathtub located just behind the figurehead. "Move, and you're dead." The blonde could only squeak in terror as Luffy kicked the door down and led his crew into the galleon's interior. The wooden corridors were manned by dozens of grunts wearing card-themed outfits who immediately drew guns and knives only for Luffy to race ahead and swat every shot aside. In their shock, they were helpless as Najiko summoned her power and created dozens of thorny branches sprouting out of the walls to seal off the doors. Much to the bathing woman's horror, the Straw Hat Pirates walked out unscathed while hauling the over 60 crewmen of hers over the shoulders. All of them bruised, bloodied, broken and wishing for the sweet release of death. Nami and Karina had also helped themselves to the storeroom, cackling as they hauled out chests stuffed with treasure. "Where's our ship?" Luffy asked her. "Following the rightmost ship here, I swear. Please, spare my life." He nodded to Kuina, signaling her to put her katana away. Luffy then tossed her a bundle of clothes and ordered her to get dressed before answering some questions. The woman first admitted her name was Honey Queen and that she was the second in command of the Trump Pirates, a band of buccaneers composed of her and her siblings with her as first mate and frontline captain. And that all meant Jack squat as Alvida turned the ship around on the rest of the boats while the other Straw Hats leapt off their temporary vessel with Moonwalk to start taking over the others. Kuina and Reiju went straight for the farthest ship with the Merry Tide behind it, effortlessly throwing the few pirates manning it into the sea before firing its front cannon directly into the rear of the Trump ship tethered to it. All the while, the others casually stormed onto the other three vessels and robbed them all blind. Nami was practically skipping around as she tallied up the tens of millions of bears the Straw Hats would be adding to their coffers. Within the span of 15 minutes, the fleet of the Trump Pirates was no more while the Going Merry was free once again. Honey Queen, now dressed in an extravagant fur robe with a yellow leather corset around her waist, fishnet stockings and red high heels, could only stare in horror at just how easily her entire naval force was destroyed. How? You all, a bunch of pirates wanted for a combined 317 million bears, Karina finished, making Honey Queen pale even more. Oh, actually, it'd be 322 million including Alvida. Anyway, you picked on the wrong people. What are you all after, exactly? Alvida then asked. You can't possibly need a ship if you have this many. And your don't recognize the most wanted pirate in the region. The regal blonde kept her mouth shut only for Luffy to glare down at her, still completely mad for the attempt made on his beloved little boat. She sighed, "Fine, our captain the Bear King wants to be king of the pirates. About 5 years ago, we set up base on Clockwork Island in order to build a weapon that would help him reach that goal." Clockwork Island, Kaya scratched her chin, sounds oddly familiar. It's a scientific hub for the East Blue, home to dozens of researchers into all sorts of fields including metallurgy and weaponry. So, my brother led us there to hijack their work and then develop his secret weapon. Oh, that's right. My father had people there researching better navigational tools for his ships. They were the most brilliant minds in the East Blue. Moody's hands curled into fists. What is it with so many pirates around just storming in and taking towns? Between me, Nami and that town you all found buggy, it's like we're a bunch of exterminators. What kind of weapon is this guy trying to make? Desire asked. It's a one-of-a-kind cannon, designed to shoot massive drilling bullets. Once complete, it will have unlimited range. He'll be able to launch sieges on islands from miles away and sink enemy ships before they even know what hit them. That sounds terrifying, Sally shivered. Assuming it can even cut through the red line, this Bear King will be a danger to the entire world. Luffy nodded, hating the sound of this guy more and more by the second. Sure, he had his ship back and his crew could go on their way now. But the thought of some fake pirate terrorizing everyone while sitting on his ass until he claimed the One Piece made up his mind. Where's this Clockwork Island? Wah! You can't be serious, Honey Queen cried. It's one thing to take down my ships, but our island is a fortress. Nobody has come close to even reaching him. Nobody came close to taking down Arlong the Saw either, but we did it anyway, Makino insisted, and he was enslaving innocent people just like you all. It makes me sick to think you can just treat people like cattle. Well now, if you all are in such a hurry to die painfully, then have it. As for me, her cocky smirk returned as her entire body turned into light pink liquid before dissolving into a puddle that slithered past the surprised Straw Hats and onto the other side of the deck before reforming. I'll be taking my leave, au revoir, you bleeding hearts. Oh no, you don't, Alvida skated forward, her mace ready only for Honey Queen to raise her hands and blast a hose full of liquid that sent her skidding away. Are you okay? Najiko helped her up only for the black-haired woman to moan at how sticky her clothes felt. Honey Queen just laughed. a hand under her mouth like a true upper-class woman. You fools. That's the power of my syrup fruit. My body can become a sugary syrup that makes me impossible to hit, and I can spray any of you with the force of a geyser. A logia, huh? Luffy raised his eyebrow. Well, guess you got us. HMPH, at least one of you is smart. Now then, I'll be taking this rowboat and fishing my brother Bojack. I'll send you all some flowers for your grave once the Bear King is through with you. In the midst of her monologue, Honey Queen didn't notice Reiju walking up right next to her. She just noticed a fist swinging into her face and expected it to phase right through her, only for the chef to knock her unconscious in one strike. The others all smiled at the black sheen of armor covering her hand, none more so than Reiju. How did I live without haki for so long? I know, right? Carmen laughed. It's just too useful. You should have seen the look on two of those dolts when I backkicked them without even looking. And so Honey Queen, her eyes wide like she was in a dream that she was bound to wake up from any minute, was escorted onto the Going Merry and fed Nami the route to Clockwork Island a few hours away. They also reluctantly picked up Bojack furiously swimming alongside the ship, tying him up and removing his spike-filled coat so he wouldn't cause any trouble. As the time passed, they learned a bit from Kaya about their next destination. According to her father, the town was at the base of a massive mechanical spire built by the scientists as a means to defend themselves from invaders. No doubt that this Bear King has turned the place into his personal stronghold with him at the top alongside his prized cannon. She did also mention one other feature. A diamond clock that was said to be the pride and joy of the town at one point. Of course, Nami all but urged them to travel in double time to see such a sight, but everyone else was of a more level head. They cleaned themselves off from the beach, ate a light but satisfying meal courtesy of Reiju and Carmen, alongside feeding the captive Trump pirates, much to their surprise, and then simply kept an eye out for any more pirate activity. After a few hours of smooth sailing, Kaya spotted an odd-looking island on the horizon. It seemed like a normal island only for her eyes to trail up a gigantic pillar where a hunk of land was resting on top with a castle at its peak. Yep, that must be it, Kuina shrugged, sharpening her blade. So, any more of your siblings we should be worried about? Ha, good luck. Bojack yelled. You might have gotten lucky against us, but Pin Joker and Skunk One aren't going down so easily. Right, sis? The others all watched as Honey Queen remained silent, looking genuinely unnerved. She watched them all effortlessly tear apart their fleet. 4 whole galleons sunk and looted in less than 10 minutes. And even her devil fruit, which was supposed to make her impossible to hit, meant nothing to these people. Oi, sis. Say something, damn it. Hey, that's no way to talk to your family, Moody scolded him. What do you broads know? I can say whatever the damn hell I want. Luffy foot rested on the top of his head in the blink of an eye, the tiniest bit of Conqueror's haki making the fat pirate shiver. You sure about that? No sir, sorry, Honey Queen. Why do you care about how we talk to each other? You two are crewmates, yeah? She nodded as Luffy stepped in front of her. A crew is supposed to be like a family, always looking out for each other. Nobody should be badmouthing each other because it just brings everyone down. Honey Queen just paled, realizing just how little the rest of the Trump siblings acted like a family. True, they were all found and brought together under Bear King. They weren't bound by blood. But how often did they scoff and laugh at each other? She herself was no stranger to laughing at her brother's misfortune. She just assumed that's how all pirates were. She was brought out of her thoughts as the Going Merry was now under the shadow of Clockwork Island, and the 12 green galleons all decked out with card motifs sailing towards them. Hold your fire. Honey Queen called. These pirates destroyed my fleet and captured myself and Bojack, let them pass. While most of the ships paused, one of them continued forward, and standing on the bow was a scraggly man with a brown leather helmet and goggles along with a brown fur shirt and something large over his back. Oh dear, Honey Queen, you must have finally put on enough makeup to rot your brain. How airheaded can you get? Let me guess, another brother of yours? Desire asked, her pipe in hand. Skunk One, yes, and something tells me he's not in the mood to talk. You all think you can just sail right up and meet the Bear King? The goggled pirate laughed. Well, I'm afraid it isn't that easy. It's about to rain on your parade. The Straw Hat Pirates watched as the massive backpack he had on started to rumble and smoke before he jumped off the bow of the galleon and flew up and over the Going Merry. A cloud of black, sulfurous gas swiftly floated down. Are you insane? Bojack yelled. You'll poison? Everyone, get close to me. Nami ordered as she summoned her Nimbus powers, white tufts covering her arms. Soon the entire crew, plus Bojack and Honey Queen being lugged over by Kuina, was surrounding the navigator as she shot her hands up. Cloud cover. A wave of white surged out of her limbs to form a puffy barrier over 20 feet around before closing down around the sides to create a dome that kept them all safe from the gas. Skunk One looked down and balked at how easily he was stopped. He dropped off on the aft deck of the Merry, preparing to make another flyover only for the dome to burst open and reveal the entire crew, weapons drawn and ready for a fight. Gah! I surrender, too late, jackass. Desire rushed up and beamed him over the head. Karina pilfered his wallet. Several of the girls threw off his gear and chucked it into the ocean. And Reiju dropped him off next to a terrified Boo Jack and a shaking Honey Queen. Gods, what kind of asshole pulls a stunt like that? Nijiko shook her head, trying to poison us and his own crew. Hey guys, check this out, Kuina said, sheafing through her old stack of bounty posters. She pulled out 3 showing the Trump siblings they had met. Their wannabe fly-bombed Skunk 1 was wanted for 6 million Barris, Honey Queen for 7.8 million and Boo Jack for an impressively small 3.2 million. Geez, no wonder you all hide behind a bunch of weapons and ships, Alvida scoffed. For pirates with this kind of price around here, you're all pathetic. Hey, just because you all have devil fruits, you think you're so much better than us? Boo Jack yelled only to get kicked in the face by the former captain. No, they aren't, Honey Queen sighed. Even with my fruit, I was no match for them. How do you all do it? Conviction, Luffy said, his arms crossed. The second things were going wrong for you. You hid and tried to run away. Me? I don't care who it is. I'll never turn back on my dream. He says that now, Skunk 1 muttered. Just wait until the Bear King gets his claws on you. You mean this guy? Kuina pulled out another poster. This one showing a brown Goliath of a man wearing a massive pelt over his back with a bounty of 11.6 million Barris. PFT. Buggy the Clown was worth more than him. Heck, Jin was worth more and he wasn't even a captain. Both of the male Trump pirates balked at hearing their captain mocked only for a ship full of angry glares to shut them up. Luffy just handed the paper back and headed into the galley for a quick snack before the Mary hit the shores of Clockwork Island. The girls simply went about their business save for Desire who kept an eye on their 3 prisoners. With more than half of the Trump siblings on board, none of the island's defenses dared fire on the Mary. The cheery caravel sailed right past them all until they pulled up on the shores of the natural island all cloaked in the shadow of the fortress hundreds of feet above them. Now back on deck, Luffy ordered the anchor dropped as he finished off the last of Carmen's canopies and had the Trump siblings hauled to their feet as Kuina dropped anchor and Desire lowered the gangplank. As soon as the gang walked off the dock and onto the grassy terrain, they could see houses and shops sitting desolately along a winding road up towards the island's spire. The group used their observation haki to sense the dozens of pirates waiting in the buildings for an ambush. Alright, get your asses out here, Luffy called out. We already beat 3 of these stupid Trump pirates, so get it over with. Around 60 goons armed with sword, pistols, gauntlets and all other sorts of weaponry burst through the doors and windows screaming for blood. The Straw Hats simply charged ahead save for Luffy to keep an eye on the 3 captured pirates. Despite being outnumbered more than 5 to 1, the enemy force was defeated in minutes with many picking the fallen crew's pockets while Luffy just walked ahead. How, training, duh. Now come on, I wanna beat this stupid Bear King already. Honey Queen, again astounded by his boundless confidence, walked ahead while her brothers sulked behind. They marched up the hill with their crew's goods in pocket, anyone else trying to ambush them getting swiftly smacked around and looted. By the time the gang had reached the entrance to the tower, hundreds of pirates were lying on the ground unconscious or wishing they were. Now the Straw Hats stood in front of a massive wooden door. Okay, so what's the deal with this? This is as far as you go. From behind the door stepped another obvious member of the Trump pirates, with yet another loud getup. Despite the massive yellow furred collar around his neck to the black strapped vest over his purple clothes and red face paint over one eye, his expression was dead serious. Pin Joker, Skunk 1 and Boo Jack cheered. You pirates are in for it now. So, this is why we were getting an SOS from your fleet. I assumed it was the Navy giving you so much trouble. His hand rested on the handle of the long rapier resting on his belt as he pointed at Kuina with a grin. But to think I'll finally get my revenge. Huh? Revenge? What are you talking about? 2 years ago, you tried to capture me for the 9.9 million berry bounty on my head. You even gave me this. He pointed to the long line of stitches down the unpainted side of his face. And now I can defeat you and present your head to the Bear King. Nice try, the last clown I saw didn't impress me either, she scoffed as she drew the Wado Ichimonji. Now step aside and let us in or I'll give you a matching one. In an impressive display of speed, Pin Joker was in front of Kuina in a flash with his much skinnier blade locked against her katana. She had to give him credit, he was far better than before. But alas, she had some new tricks of her own. She summoned her armament haki and coated her blade, so that when she broke the blade lock and swung down again, the Wado Ichimonji cleaved right through his saber. Impossible. I've had it with these freak shows, Carmen cried, shifting into her half-peacock form. Let's deal with this ruffian already. Flamenco in C major. Her taloned feet moved like a blur as she spun and swung her legs out, battering the disarmed swordsman with a flurry of kicks and slashes that left Pin Joker a bleeding, well-covered mess on the ground moaning in agony. HMPH, how droll, she said as she returned to normal, and to think this Bear King wants to be king of the pirates. Yeah, these guys are definitely more bark than bite, Moody sighed. Alright, let's get this over with. Look, There they are. The Straw Hats turned as a clamor of voices came from down the hill. They were then surprised to see dozens of men and women all wearing old lab coats and ratty garments underneath. Oh my goodness, look, Pin Joker has been defeated. And the other 3 are their prisoners, it's finally happened. We're saved. They all cheered, clapping and celebrating to the Straw Hats' joy and the Trump siblings' horror. It was true. Their entire force was nothing compared to these guys. These must be islanders that the Bear King is forcing to work on that special cannon, Najiko noted. These guys might be jokes to us, but they could easily hurt all of the people. But that's going to change, Nami told her. We're pirates now, and that means we're free to kick anyone pulling this stunt out on their ass. We did with Buggy, we did it with Arlong, and now we're gonna do it here. The people of Clockwork Island hollered in delight at their imminent rescue as Luffy and the others were led into the tower and Honey Queen guided them to the entrance to a large freight elevator. Wait, you're just going to let them up to the throne room? Bojack bucked only for the blonde to nod. Boys, let's face it. We're in way over our heads. We were better off just smuggling contraband before the Bear King came up with this insane plan. Now how about we all just GWE can escape with our lives and what's left of our dignity intact, The swordsman, the dive bomber, and the tubby soldier all admitted she was right. All of them were just common contraband runners who got their small-time bounties evading patrols and sneaking unlicensed booze and gambling into Marine Rand towns. Almost none of them had any experience with real piracy save for Pin Joker, and that was more for self-defense than anything. As the lift carried the group up dozens of stories, they all spilled how the Bear King outfitted them with their specialized equipment and legions of hired hands and Shanghaied pirates to fill out their numbers. They were to avoid contact with the Navy at all costs to not tip off that this research outpost had been occupied. And, most importantly, they were to put first priority on making sure that nobody stopped the construction of the King Cannon. Wow, no wonder I've never heard of any of you, Alvita sighed. You're all just a bunch of pretenders playing pirates. And yet you still enslaved an island full of innocent people for your captain's vanity project. Sally shook her head. How disgraceful, whatever should we do with you? Don't bother with that, Luffy shrugged. A bunch of fakers like them won't last a day without this king guy. You do realize he has a devil fruit, right? Pinjoker asked. Carmen and Reiju both silently shifted into their half-animal forms. Sally summoned several bees. Karina changed her volume so her clapping her hands was completely silent and Desire summoned a square barrier over her unimpressed face. Where did you find so many? Honey Queen asked. I only got my syrup fruit through an underworld dealer who regularly travels to the Grand Line. Crew secret, Nami told her. Now all of you line up. I don't want any funny business. Karina, help me restrain them. By the time the door opened to the top floor, the 4 Trump pirates had their hands bound together and were shuffled forward under the careful watch of Makino and Kuina. The large metal door lifted up to reveal a grand view with half of the room's walls being massive windows that showed off the glittering waters of the East Blue. But the crew all focused on the Goliath of a man sitting in a large throne, his brutish face in total shock as these strangers marched in with all of his inner circle in tow. What the? Who are all of you? How did you capture my crew? Was pretty easy given how weak they are, Desire boasted. Now, you want to come quietly or should we just beat the snot out of you now? You dare speak to the Bear King with such disrespect? I was hoping to use this for a more suitable target. He pressed a large red button on a pedestal next to his throne, opening a large circular panel in the floor. Up came a solid metal cannon, twice as big as the ones typically found on a pirate ship. The Trump pirates all cowered in fear at the sight of the completed King Cannon. Ahahaha. You blustering fools are too late. This is the ultimate weapon of the seas, and you all shall be its first targets. Luffy's fists tightened as he stepped forward. Really? A stupid cannon? Why don't you stop hiding up in this stupid tower and prove how strong you are yourself? A king doesn't sully himself with commoners. You might have gotten lucky enough to defeat the rest of the Trump pirates, but I don't need to lift a finger to defeat you. From the smaller door leading from the staircase came an entire platoon of soldiers dressed in heavy metal armor, around 25 in total, and all brandishing massive lances, swords and tridents. Guards! Defeat these intruders, and take the other 4 to the dungeon. What? Why? You all are pathetic failures. Letting yourselves get captured by no-name pirates. That goes double for you, Honey Queen. Even after shelling out millions for your devil fruit, you're just as worthless. I expect to be properly compensated in my bedchamber later. The other ladies all went green in the face at the underlying threat, with even Boo Jack, Skunk One and Pin Joker all looking terrified that he would even suggest that. The entire room then went cold as Luffy's glare threatened to kill anyone who spoke up. Apologize to her. Right now. Huh? You have no right to judge, boy. Considering how many whores you. Luffy's blackened fist rammed into his stomach, the 10-foot-tall man doubling over in agony as that one punch forced all the wind out of him. The young pirate then grabbed him by the back of the neck and tossed him to the ground. You're no king, you're just a bastard, and I'm going to make you pay for all the shit you pulled. Straw Hat pirates, keep the others safe. Yes, Captain, they all chorused before turning to face the circle of knights that now surrounded the throne room. They all split off to defeat the platoon while Luffy dealt with the horrid tyrant of Clockwork Island. The biggest challenge with the knights was their armor, which the others had to admit was no common iron. Clearly he had sprung for high-quality steel, which meant the Straw Hat ladies had to strike hard and smart to defeat their foes. In the center of the room was Moody and Kaya, back-to-back and firing gem shots and pistol rounds at any exposed crease in the defense. When one particularly huge knight tried to cleave them in half with a battle axe, a huge barrier formed in front of the blondes. Desire then rushed up with her fingers still crossed before planting her foot right between his legs. With him distracted, she yanked off his helmet before socking him in the face and leaving him a lying heap on the floor. Elsewhere, others were having more luck getting through their foes' defenses. Karina quickly found out that armor had a bad habit of echoing noise. All she had to do was clap her hands near their helmets and the guards were a disoriented mess. Just like with Pearl, Nami's electricity meant any knight she touched would get zapped and roasted inside their own armor. Alvida and Kuina used armament haki to imbue their weapons with it and smash or slice through their plating, much to the knight's horror. Carmen and Reiju's zone forms had enough power to dent the metal, leaving many horrified when their strikes left their arms or legs trapped in compressed metal with broken bones and internal bleeding. Just like with everything else with the Trump pirates, the knights were all about quantity over quality. Their only advantage was their armor, with their real strength or battle prowess being on par with all the other flunkies. The other Trump pirates stayed by the sidelines, amazed at how the king's best forces were getting stomped only for two knights to approach them. "Everyone, stay behind me," Honey Queen ordered, "none of you have your weapons." "You traitor, how dare you fight against His Majesty?" "How dare I? He expects me to prostrate myself like some cheap hooker. I should have done this years ago, I quit." Honey Queen's arms turned to pink syrup as she thrusted her hands forwards, releasing a blast of liquid that forced both the knights back. The enraged blonde grabbed one of their swords before smacking him with the flat of the blade, leaving with a bloody nose. The other tried to get up and tab her with his lance, only for the metal to pass through her body as it turned into syrup. "Huh? That can't be." While Honey Queen was just as shocked that she managed that, she didn't question it and launched another blast of sticky syrup that left him stuck to the floor. She then noticed several of the injured knights scrambling for the door and had an idea. She willed her syrup forward, a small wave of the stuff rushing for the door before suddenly springing up to make a 10-foot-tall gooey wall. "Hey, what gives? We need to get reinforcements." "Oh no you don't," Najiko yelled before throwing a handful of seeds that sprouted into massive green vines that started to ensnare the retreating group. "You jerks have done more than enough." And if the fight between the Straw Hats and the Knights was one-sided, Luffier work of their supposed king. True to the warning, the Bear King did have the power of the flint fruit, which allowed him to cover his arms in a special rock-like armor that grew hotter whenever it was struck. Unfortunately for the Tinpot Tyrant, Luffy's genuine armament haki was more than a match for the Flint Man as he simply covered his hands and pummeled away. Aside from his power, the Bear King was as amateur a fighter as possible. All of his punches were sloppy, he left massive holes in his defense, and he was clearly used to letting his superior size and reach do most of the work for him. All he ended up being was a massive target for Luffy's gum-gum attacks, including a gum-gum bazooka that sent him flying through his own throne and shattering it to splinters. No, I am the king of the pirates. A random nobody can't just storm into my castle and defeat me. You, king of the pirates, you idiot, how are you supposed to find the One Piece just sitting on your ass? It was foolproof. With the king cannon, I would sink any opposition and then sail to Raftel in one unopposed voyage. The Bear King growled, standing up as his hands turned red hot. But you, a sniveling child with delusions of grandeur. I'm actually out there living my dream with my crew. You sit up here and let everyone else do all the work for you. That's not being a pirate, it's just being a loser. Luffy then stomped up to the massive metal barrel of the cannon and cracked his knuckles. This is just a weapon, and any weapon can break. He stretched his arms around the steel cannon and pulled back with all his strength, quickly ripping the infamous mortar out of its platform before throwing it out one of the many windows where it flew down and splashed into the ocean. No, you've ruined everything, shut up. Now let's go, we're done here. You think you can just leave? I will flay you alive and turn your hookers into? Luffy appeared in front of him thanks to Shave, the same radiant fury from when the king insulted his crew earlier. The rubber man's hands were wrapped around the larger pirate's throat. You know what? We're not leaving until I beat you to a pulp. After throwing the Bear King backwards, Luffy planted his feet and stretched his arms back as haki covered his limbs as the monarch tried to get back on his feet. Gum Gatling. The Bear King could feel 5 punches hit him at the same time as hundreds more followed, being bludgeoned in every place at once as Luffy unleashed his white-hot rage at the man who not only made a mockery out of pirates, but treated his own crew like trash and threatened his friends. Any one of these would be enough to piss him off, but all three? By the time Luffy landed one final punch to the man's face, he was a wreck. Teeth falling out of his mouth, bruises covering every inch. Even his bear pelt cape had fallen off and was balled up behind him. The former Trump pirates all stared in amazement, never imagining that the Bear King could lose this thoroughly. And as he collapsed to the ground, an unconscious wreck, Luffy simply stretched his neck and sighed. "Ah, that's better, alright. Let's go." His crew all smiled as they headed back to the elevator, their job complete. Without the King Cannon, the Bear King's plan to rule the seas was toast and all of his men were incapacitated. They passed by the 4 ex-members of the Tyrant's crew, all looking thoughtful. "So, what do you plan on doing now?" Kaya asked. "Well, I think we've all had enough crime for our lives." Bojack sighed. "I was never much of a fighter anyway. The whole reason I had that spiky armor was to give me an easy win, but I don't want to do that anymore." Agreed. Skunk once said as he took off his goggles, revealing a pair of eyes narrowed in worry. "In fact, I think it's about time I pursue my real interest, meteorology." "Wait, really?" Nami spoke up. "How did you become a pirate if you just wanted to research weather?" "A bad turn of fate, just like me," Pinjoker sighed. "I was a bounty hunter when I got mixed up in a bad deal. And once you have a bounty of your own, you can't exactly walk into government offices to claim rewards. So, I turned to being hired muscle for people until I wound up here." "Why don't you all stay here then?" Makino offered. "All the scientists here could probably use someone to protect them." The 3 men all looked at each other and found themselves liking the idea. Not only would it help any heat from the Marines die off, but it would make up for all the suffering the scientists here went through. The only exception was Honey Queen, who just stood in shock before stepping forward. "If you don't mind, could I come with you, huh? I can't believe you would stick up for me, both to the other Trump pirates and the Bear King. In one day, you've impressed me in so many ways beyond your fighting prowess. Plus, your crew are so incredibly well trained in using their devil fruits. It makes me realize just how cowardly I've been, and I want to change that. Plus, I've always wanted to see more of the world. I've been stuck in the East Blue my entire life." The other Straw Hats could all relate, and Luffy, par for the course at this point, accepted her on board. Her former crewmates waved her goodbye, apologizing for their callousness and cruelty, and wished her well on her journey. And so, with a round of applause from the islanders and being told that the Marines were on their way to capture the Bear King, the Straw Hat Pirates sailed away with the Going Merry safe and sound and a new crewmate as an added bonus, along with the treasure chests they lifted from the Trump Pirates' ship for some extra money for their coffers. But as Honey Queen got to meet the others, and oddly insisted on keeping her name as her real one was just too embarrassing, the real excitement turned to their next destination. According to Nami, by this time tomorrow they would be at the entrance to the Grand Line.